From the earliest whispers of human history, when medicine was not yet science but ritual and survival, there emerges a practice so shocking, so raw, and so deeply strange that it still stirs both horror and fascination in our modern minds. Active trepanation, the deliberate drilling or cutting of holes into the human skull. A practice that stretches back thousands of years across cultures and continents, leaving us to wonder whether it was the first form of surgery, a mystical rite, or a desperate attempt to cure what could not be understood. Imagine a prehistoric human lying on the hard earth inside a dim cave, torches flickering against the walls, while a shaman or healer, armed not with surgical steel but with sharpened flint, obsidian, or even crude metal tools, presses the edge against bone and begins to scrape, chip, or bore a hole through the skull, not to kill, but to heal, to release the evil spirits believed to cause headaches, seizures, or madness. And the most astonishing part is that many of these patients survived fossilized skulls discovered around the world, from Europe to Africa to South America, show clear evidence of bone regrowth, proof that the patients lived days, weeks, even years after enduring the unimaginable. Archaeologists have found skulls in France dating back over 7,000 years with carefully drilled circular holes. While in the high Andes of Peru, Inca healers became masters of trepanation, performing the operation with remarkable skill, sometimes multiple times on the same patient, and survival rates in some regions were surprisingly higher in fact than those from battlefield surgeries in the 19th century.
Wow.
When infection and poor hygiene killed countless soldiers, to the Incas, trepanation may have been used to relieve pressure from head injuries caused in war, to cure persistent pain, or perhaps as part of spiritual cleansing, a belief that the head was a sacred vessel through which divine forces flowed, and by opening it, one could restore harmony between body and spirit. Across ancient Greece, the practice appears again. Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, wrote in detail about trepanation in his medical texts, describing when and how to drill into the skull to relieve pressure from traumatic injuries, proving that even as medicine began to embrace rational explanations, the idea of cutting into the skull remained a legitimate treatment, one that survived into the Roman Empire, the Middle Ages, and beyond. In medieval Europe, trepanation was often blended with superstition and religion. Doctors believed it could treat epilepsy, insanity, or migraines, conditions they thought were caused by demonic possession, an imbalance of humors or blockages, of unseen forces inside the head, and so the hole in the skull became both a medical procedure and a spiritual exorcism. By the Renaissance, as anatomy advanced, surgeons used trepanation to treat head trauma from battlefields, accidents, and duels, crafting more refined metal instruments called trepans, cylindrical saws designed to cut neat holes into the bone. And medical illustrations from this era show patients calmly undergoing the procedure, sometimes held down, sometimes sitting upright, as if stoically accepting that to save their lives, their skulls must be opened. Yet even with more advanced tools, the risks were immense. Without anesthesia, patients endured excruciating pain. Without germ theory, infections spread easily. And without antiseptic techniques, many died not from the hole itself, but from sepsis, fever, or blood loss. Still, trepanation persisted, not only in Europe, but across Africa, where tribal healers used it for both ritual and medicine, in Polynesia, where shamans practiced it as part of spiritual healing, and even into the 19th century, where doctors in rural areas continued to use it to treat injuries long before modern neurosurgery existed. The strange endurance of trepanation speaks to something deeper, something almost primal in human culture, the belief that by opening the skull, one could release what was trapped inside, whether it was pressure, pain, spirits, or sickness. And what's more, this ancient practice has never truly disappeared. Even in the 20th century, there were fringe movements that revived trepanation, with eccentric individuals drilling holes into their own skulls in the belief that it could expand consciousness, alter perception, or restore the natural flow of cerebrospinal fluid. Claims that modern medicine dismisses, but which still attracts small groups of followers. fascinated by the possibility of unlocking hidden mental states. In fact, some controversial figures in the 1960s and 70s openly advocated self-trepanation as a way to achieve higher awareness, blending ancient mysticism with modern counterculture experimentation. And though outlawed in most countries, stories of people attempting it continue to surface, a reminder that the allure of this bizarre practice has never fully died. Today, of course, neurosurgery has transformed, with advanced imaging, anesthesia, and sterile techniques allowing surgeons to safely open the skull for legitimate medical reasons tumors, hemorrhages, or traumatic brain injuries. But even in these modern operating rooms, the roots trace back to those first daring humans who, without knowledge of germs or anesthesia, took a tool to bone and attempted to heal. Trepanation thus stands as both a symbol of human desperation and ingenuity, of fear and courage, of ritual and science. And as we look back across thousands of years at skulls bearing the scars of survival, we cannot help but feel awe at the resilience of our ancestors who endured such ordeals in search of relief, healing, or transcendence. It raises haunting questions: what drove them to try? How many died in agony? How many truly found relief? Was it medicine, magic, or madness? Perhaps it was all three, woven together in the long, strange history of humankind's attempt to master the mysteries of the mind. And so the story of trepanation is not just about holes in the skull, but about the human will to fight suffering, to confront the unknown, and to seek answers even in the most terrifying and painful of places, a testament to the lengths people will go for hope, for healing, and for the belief that somehow, by opening the head, they could also open the door to life itself.